Welcome back to another episode of Black on Purpose 365. Black on Purpose is the purpose. Have a seat at the table. This afternoon, my good friend, my dog, my family, Nicole decided to pull up. So we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about something in the Black community that it was kind of brought to my attention and I wasn't really even that aware of it. So I had to go and educate myself more and just learning a little bit more about it. And then after learning, it was like, wow, this is definitely something that's important that we should be discussing, which is Black parents raising autistic children. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about we're gonna give some facts, some knowledge, just educate a little bit for those that may not be aware. Then what I'll do on my end after Nicole provides you with that information, I actually interviewed two different people, a black woman and a black man that have a son and a daughter. Just a lot of their questions were the questions that I asked. The responses were similar, but in some ways it kind of went different ways. So it's like it kind of shows that you cannot put people in one box. So with that, my co-host, my friend, my dog Nicole. It's a pleasure. A much appreciation to you coming back again, stopping through,
Likewise.
drop a few
Thanks
jewels.
for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So could you just you start us off with a little bit, just talking about this important matter of autistic children and their parents.
Okay, well, I think first is just understanding, what is autism. Autism is a serious developmental disorder. It impairs the ability to communicate and interact. Autism spectrum disorder also it impedes the nervous system. So there's a range of severity and symptoms. They can vary, between autistic individuals. Common symptoms are like difficulty with communication, difficulties with social interactions, obsessive interest, and repetitive behaviors. I know oftentimes you may encounter someone who is autistic and they'll do certain things over and over and over and over and over again. A lot of it in the Black community gets misdiagnosed as other cognitive or behavioral disorders. So, kind of to pivot off of that, and let's talk about how autism impacts the Black community. A lot of times, Black children are often diagnosed later with autism compared to other racial demographics, and that can vary in reasons as to why. But one of the biggest or most important things in autism diagnosis is early diagnosis because that helps you with developing educational plans, helping to kind of tailor certain behaviors and family therapy, understanding how to support your autistic child and their development. So I did do some research here. So you may see me look down looking at my notes here, but a lot of reasons as to why Black kids get diagnosed later than other kids that have autism. And some of that is due to, stigmas within the Black community. Black community is we tend to be focused on the religious aspect, and so what we'll try to heal that way. Or there's the economic standpoint where some demographics don't have access to care. They may rely on Medicare, and Medicare doesn't often cover what's needed to diagnose an autistic child and or what's needed to treat an autistic child. You have limited access to services, specialty care, and that comes along with, your demographic. Again, let's go back to the Medicare thing. Medicare may not cover specialist visits. There's transportation issues, financial issues, systemic racism. A lot of times your doctor may not want to pursue an active diagnosis for your child. They write Black kids off. So they'll write it off as you give them time and then we'll see. I experienced that with my own son, and while he's not autistic, there were certain behaviors that I noticed early on that I would bring up to his white doctor, and the white doctor would say, well, we don't really diagnose that this early. So let's wait until X, Y, and Z time frame. Let's give them until this age. So it's a perfect example of, a doctor not necessarily listening to those concerns. Oftentimes in the Black community, there's a lack of awareness on what to look for when it comes to symptoms of autism. You also have, which I mentioned before, cultural differences. Even within the Black community, there are so many different cultures. All of us aren't of the same culture, so to speak. And so we go about things in different ways. But again, late diagnosis is one of the biggest things that plagues our Black kids when it comes to autism and autism diagnoses. Early intervention services are major when it comes to tackling autism in Black kids. Being able to assess someone that is on the spectrum as early as possible and get them into programs that help them are very important in developing them into productive autistic adolescents and productive autistic adults. Children with autism that are diagnosed later, they face greater challenges in school. It may be that, and the way that our kids in a lot of communities go to school, those behaviors aren't necessarily written off as this child has behavioral problems, and they don't actually look into seeking individual education plans for these children. They don't look at maybe, speaking to the parent to say, hey, let's figure out maybe your child may be on the spectrum, or, because a lot of inner city, low income Black kids, they get put into these federally funded Title I education systems or educational schools where they're in a classroom and a teacher is battling not just this child with behavior issues, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other children that have behavioral issues. And it's not necessarily that these are kids who don't know how to behave. It could very well be that these are kids who have not yet been diagnosed. So there's also mental health concerns. Within the Black community, mental health is a stigma that Black people don't like to face oftentimes, even as adults that aren't diagnosed with anything. You hear the word therapy and you think there's something wrong with you, as opposed to hearing the word therapy and you think there's something right with you, that you are seeking therapy to develop yourself and your behaviors to be better than what the behaviors that you have exhibited in the past. So one of the biggest things we want to do, you want to raise awareness of the disparities within the Black community when it comes to diagnosis with kids with autism, as well as making the parents aware of their options and being advocates. Like I mentioned before, you go into your doctor's office and the doctor wants to put it off. Well, guess what you can do? You can go see another doctor. One thing I did when I moved, I made it a point to seek care. And this is just my personal preference, but I made it a point that my health professionals were Black. And most of them are Black and they own their own practices. I've found that a lot of times when the doctor owns their own practice, they have a lot more to lose. So the quality of care is different. And then interviewing doctors, people don't realize that you can interview doctors,
Yeah.
even with
Yeah.
Medicaid, whatever, Medicare, I think it is. You can interview your doctors. You don't have to just go to one doctor and then take whatever they give you. You see this doctor and go with a list of questions that you want to ask that doctor that speak to the type of care you're seeking for your child and for yourself.
I think that's real important to mention too, because I don't think enough people understand that you can interview not just for that, and just in general, that you can interview
Hmm.
your doctor. Be like, hey, that like this is your
Yes,
right. You should take that upon yourself to know who you're dealing with.
absolutely. Absolutely. We're talking about the quality of care, not only for our children, but for ourselves. Because while yes, the focus of this topic is autism
Mhm.
in Black kids,
Yeah.
you think about some of the adults that you may encounter that very well may be on the spectrum, and they've never been diagnosed. They've just gone their whole lives probably thinking there was something wrong with them, and their families thinking there's something wrong with them, or they just touched, you know? And this is someone who just was never diagnosed.
Yeah, there's definitely more
And
to
never
it.
received absolutely. They never received the type of care that they needed. They never received access to the resources that are available to them. And so when we think about, resources, you have Autism Speaks. That's a resource that is available. Spark for Autism, Autism in Black Incorporated. These are some very good organizations that give you the tools that you need to educate yourself on what autism is. educate yourself on the resources that are available to you, also educate you on how to advocate for yourself and for your children. Let's see here. The Child Mind Institute, that's another organization that helps parents bring up their concerns to their pediatrician, when it comes to making them aware that hey, my child may be on the spectrum because I've noticed X, Y, and Z. Let's see here. There's also an increase in misdiagnosis within the Black community and Black children. Black autistic children are more likely to be misdiagnosed with conditions like conduct disorder or adjustment disorder, which can further delay their access to appropriate care. So those are some of the main things that in the research that I've done that just highlight the opportunities that exist within our community in terms of being able to diagnose our children, being able to get care for our children, and advocate for our children when it comes to autism. Let's see here. Let's see. I think that's really the bulk of everything that I was able to identify. Some people, there's also like different levels, of autism when you speak on the spectrum disorder. So there's 3 levels. You have the first level, which is requiring support. Individuals at this level can have some difficulty in initiating social interactions. They may demonstrate inflexibility in their behaviors, leading to difficulties in daily activities, like feeding yourself, putting your clothes on, things like that. Level 2, which is someone who requires substantial support. Individuals at this level have noticeable challenges with nonverbal and verbal communication. They have very limited social skills, and the same thing, inflexibility that makes daily living a challenge for these individuals. And then there's level 3, which requires very substantial support. They have severe communication challenges, both verbally and non-verbally, and have significant difficulties just functioning in life independently in all areas. So, there's different levels of autism and different levels of support that these parents need when it comes to supporting their children with autism.
I'm glad that you included that information about the programs because what I want to do is when we get ready to post it, I'm going to make sure that add that information as far as like links for people to click on,
Mm-hmm.
just some resource, some additional. I had actually been looking around, and you read my mind on that one because I was like, I want to make sure that I include, some ways for people can reach out or can, they can if they want to get their children checked out. So kudos for that one. Um, so another thing on my side was that again, I interviewed 2 different people, and they really like the things that they talked about hit right in between a lot of the things that you were talking about. So some of the questions that I started out with. So again, I spoke with a gentleman here in the building that I'm in. I guess you want to call him a concierge, and his daughter is 22 years old. He actually was the one that kind of gave me the idea. So then that's when I started going a little bit further into it. And then so I have a cousin. I spoke with her and I asked her a lot of different things as well. And her son, my cousin, was maybe 18 or 19 or something like that, right? So one of the questions that I asked was, I asked what are some of the child's strengths and interests. So in one, the strength, actually, this one of the questions for both of them, the answer for both was resilience. But then for one, resilience, and then one, it was the interest was cartoons and like Legos. Matter of fact, I had actually had bought some Lego Marvel characters um to set. Another was what were some things that you noticed that prompts you to have them either him or her screened? And in one case, gentleman, he told me that he noticed for days that she wasn't speaking. She wasn't saying anything at all. So it was like, it kind of made him, you know, triggered the thought that, something's not right.
Right.
In the other instance, she said at like 18 months old, it was just certain things weren't developed because she has another child as well. So it was like at 18 months old, it was just certain things that just, I don't know, just didn't seem like everything was functioning the way it was supposed to, or it was supposed to be developing in certain areas. So from that, she said she started going to like I think she said started going to therapists or started going to some different doctors and different things at a young age, but she didn't get an actual diagnosis until of that he was autistic until he was 3 years old. The good thing was that she found out, and as opposed to them having a struggle in certain areas. Whereas the gentleman that I spoke to, he said he didn't find out until she was 12. So that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see, it was I asked as far as programs, he didn't really have very many programs. It's like I think there was one of those things where he was still figuring things out, but I'm sure he had some resources. It might just didn't come up to his mind at the time when we were speaking. But in the other instance, other case, my cousin, she told me that she was going to therapy. They had a therapist, so they were going weekly for speech development, stuff like that.
Right. Uh-huh.
So those were some things. And I asked what was one of the biggest obstacles to overcome um in your child's life? And it was like they hit me with was the world. And I was like, the world. I was like, yeah, because
Yeah.
the world doesn't accept different. The world is so quick to be judgmental as opposed to taking a step back and be like, hold up, be respectful. Everything's not funny. Everybody's not in the same. Like you said, everyone's different. We all got, even though we got different skin tones could be similar, still don't mean we grew up the same. Cultures is different. It's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
different variables to the equation, right? So then another was this one. She hit my cousin. She hit me with that kind of like it made me like it didn't make me uncomfortable, but it made me feel like I was with her when she might have experienced this. Where she said she was talking about when she went to the doctors that the doctors was questioning her for being a drug addict. Like like it was their fault.
Listen, what did that speaks to what I said though, in terms of your quality of care and the bias from your medical providers.
Yeah, like so she was like or there was some kind of um uh physical altercations between in their relationships. Other they were assuming stuff that don't have nothing to do with nothing as if it was their fault that this was caused. And
Right.
I had no idea. Wouldn't even have known that doing this, I'm actually really educating myself because there's a lot of stuff that I had no idea about autistic parents and the things that they have to the patience, the education, just thinking ahead, planning ahead, all of these different things that you won't see on the surface, and they've managed to do it so well that there's no complaints because they love their children, so they're going to make it work, And I asked also like what advice would they offer to parents, and both of them said this, which was patience, and then they also kind of both alluded to this, which was knowing the triggers, knowing their children's triggers. Then, kind of being aware of the environment ahead of time before you go. If you know it's going to be a place that's loud, then maybe that ain't the best place to take them. If there's places where it's people that maybe don't understand or don't have the patience, things like that, then that's probably not the best ideas as well. So those were some things, and then also I went on to talk with my cousin, and she was telling me that her son at this point he doesn't even need a lot of help. It's more like just supervise. She was like, he can make his own phone. He can wash himself. He can do practically everything. And I want to say, if she does watch this, that I got to give her so much props because she, as a working woman, she went through. She was telling me how she went through the diagnosis while she was also getting a master's degree. So she was doing that, working and studying during that time frame, and she managed to, keep it all together, still be a wife, and then all the way to a point where graduated last year, she was able to help him to get through high school. So it's like for her to tell me that, it was like when I zoomed out and I thought about it, I was like, man, she like for real is a superhero. Like I always say that black women are superheroes, but like knowing all the different things that she's had to put aside, you know, especially when you see these little young Jones that put me first on and as opposed to the children, then you see
Mm-hmm.
see women that really are locked into making sure that their children, especially if they have special needs, they're making sure that they're getting everything that they need. It's amazing to me. And, so that's why I thought it was important to talk about this because we need to highlight those type of people, or not those type of people, but just the caliber of people, because those people are the special people. Those are the ones that that we need, kind of like teachers. People kind of overlook teachers, how important they are in the child's life. That's the same way with the development of these people, the people that have to deal with, not deal with. So I apologize, not deal with, but adjust to life and make put their lives to the side to make sure that everything is comfortable and works well in order for their children and their families and everybody to be all on one accord. That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing to me.
It is.
Yeah. Now transitioning into from that, because I don't even want to make that seem like that it's a difficult thing. It's just something where we want to educate people, and I enjoyed like finding out about this. But to continue this, I wanted to just kind of do like a we're gonna do kind of a quick rapid fire, throw out a couple of statements, ideas, questions, and then I'll do it, give you 10, and then you just say the first thing that comes to your mind, and then likewise, you throw a few back at me, and then we'll conclude this episode.
Okay.
All right. So number one, Baltimore.
Wait a minute. Like, are we on this same topic, or are we just whatever comes to my mind?
Whatever comes to your mind, yeah. Whatever comes to your mind.
Jeez, man. Oh, you know what's crazy? First thing that came to my mind is City That Reads. That was the theme growing up. Baltimore, the city that reads. I mean, that's what made me a bookworm because they pushed that in school.
Okay.
Yep. Special. Kids see the world so much different than it's untainted for them. And I think that's the gift that kids offer adults is that how they see the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. College.
Experience. Um, while I don't feel college may be for everyone, I think college gives people experiences not just through education, but through socialization. I've found that a lot of people who have gone to college where they're away at college have different skill sets when it comes to socialization and networking and building relationships.
Africa.
Home. I'm literally planning another trip back there. So, yeah, home.
Let me see. What's that? That's five. Soul food.
Mm. Ooh, it's a gift and a curse, man. It's a gift and a curse. Soul food is a gift and a curse. I mean, it's a gift because it's delicious, but I think it can be you can overindulge,
Okay.
which would be the curse.
Yeah. Fair enough. Black relationships.
Beautiful. There's so much beauty in black love. Black love is so complex. It's so multifaceted. Um, black love, I feel, is the foundation for our communities. Yeah.
Donald Trump.
I have nothing to offer in that subject. I choose to
For sure.
not speak on that topic.
Yeah. For sure. That was 8. With 2 more. Let's see. Having a career.
I think having a career depends on a person's perspective. I think we as a society get so hung up on your career being solely focused on how much money you can make as opposed to your career being focused on the impact that you make on others. Oftentimes, careers get in the way of fulfilling your life purpose.
And grandparents.
Foundations, man, your grandparents are the foundations for who you ultimately become as an adult. I feel because once your grandparents go, everything changes for a lot of us. Some people didn't, have great relationships with their grandparents or relationships at all. And oddly enough, you can tell. You can tell by those individuals. It can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing, but grandparents are essential to your development as a human being.
And that's my 10.
Geez. Okay, so before I go into my 10, I do want to drop this when it goes back to the topic of autism. I want to go into the importance of yoga for autistic people. It's so beneficial because it can offer not only physical benefits, but emotional benefits, social benefits. It can help relieve stress, improve focus, balance, strength, flexibility. It can help them with their growth and their fine motor skills. Confidence building is very huge when it comes to yoga. So, I want to get the message out there for parents, to look into yoga for your autistic children. That's one of the things that's going to be my focus in my yoga therapy programs is going to be, yoga, not just for the child, but for the parent and the child, do it together. It's a bonding thing, kind of a bonding experience. But okay, now back to my 10.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Technology.
My passion.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you, Sean. Got you. Success.
Long term, the success. It's crazy because what I thought success was at 20 years old in my 40s looks completely different. So success is a is defined. It's different for each person, but you have to figure out what that looks like for yourself.
And also for each stage of your life
Yeah.
because it changes. All right. AI.
Dangerous. Dangerous. This is dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. I can see both sides of it. I can see the benefits
I
and
mean,
the
being an
disadvantages.
engineer, I understand how to use it, but I also understand that there's people that abuse it, and it's getting as fast as it's moving. It's as fast as these people are so like they're adapting on the fly. So it's like there's
Yeah.
no regulations for nothing. There's no penalties for nothing. So it's like it could be a great tool, but it needs to be some regulations. It needs to be some consequences if you do certain things. And right now, it's almost like crypto. You can just do whatever you want to do. It ain't nobody going to penalize you for nothing.
Yeah. True. You're right about that. All right. One of my passions, yoga.
Mm. Man, yoga is my best friend. Like I feel like I'm glad that I don't know how I actually got to yoga or doing it.
Hmm.
Once I was introduced, I think, matter of fact, I think I went to a Walmart one time and I found a video because I bought this big medicine ball thing to exercise on, and a video came with it. And I started watching that video, and that showed me different poses, which piqued the interest. So from that, I just started reading a little bit, learning a little more stuff. I ain't nowhere near where you are. I ain't even close, but I have enough intelligence, and I've educated myself enough that I realize how important it is to your progress, compartmentalizing, and like when people talk about which I don't judge people that smoke a bunch of weed, but it's like you can get the same effects of smoking weed a different way, which is by meditation and yoga. But people get stuck in their own way, and they don't even want to open their minds up to the other.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Television.
it's a thing of the past. And is slowly. I feel like television is turning into it's gonna be like CDs and cassette tapes in the summer.
Wow, really? Okay. All right. Okay. Um, Veganism.
Way too many stereotypes. So many people that think something they never heard of before, they immediately be like, "Oh, that's nasty." They never even tasted it. My mother is worse for it. She'd be like, "Oh, I ain't liking that," and then end up tasting something, and next thing I know, I get a text or a call a week later. What was that again? What was that brand? And it's like I thought it was nasty. I thought you didn't like it. So I think that people are too judgmental about things that they don't know about, as opposed to just maybe don't have no opinion. Just if you're interested, try it out. But if not, then just don't worry about it.
Agree. Yeah, I've come across some phenomenal vegan recipes that have me drooling. But I'm open minded, so I'll pretty much try a lot of things. Let's see. Beauty.
Man, I feel like beauty is synonymous with good health, patience, manners, understanding. I feel like that beauty falls into all of these things, but for whatever reason, people don't only attach beauty to what you look like. So because somebody is deemed as pretty on the outside, they just automatically just say you have beauty. No, you don't. You got a terrible attitude. You're not educated. You don't empathize. You don't have anything. There's no beauty there. You're ugly. Your physical features are amazing, but you're not a beautiful person. So I feel like that beauty is attached. Beauty is attached to a lot of different things.
Let's see here. I got what? I got three. I got four more, right? I think I got four more. Books.
Are so important. I wish that I was more like now. I read a lot, but
Hmm.
I wish that when I was younger that somebody created the interest to want to read because once I jumped in there and I started realizing that I really can control how I operate and what I do based off of the knowledge that I have, it was like, why am I not reading? And it's crazy that
Yeah.
it just switched one day. It was just like, all right, I read something and was like, damn, I feel like a whole different person. And it was like from that point on, I wanted to keep that momentum up. So I feel like as opposed to that people, especially kids, feeling like it's a penalty. I feel like that they should understand that it can be very rewarding. Books.
Yeah. Yeah. You can go anywhere in a book,
Hmm.
through a book, I should say.
Yeah,
Travel.
travel is important. Travel is important because, especially international, travel is important because you could get humbled living in one country for a long time, and then you go somewhere else, and then you realize how many things that you take for granted. So
Yeah.
travel opens your mind up. Like I was reading something about people that that do a lot of traveling, how much more patience they have and how much more like they're able to just learn or more eager to learn a lot of other stuff by traveling. It just
Hmm.
kind of opens up that willingness to understand that, okay, even though I drive on this side of the road most of the time, you know what, they're driving on that side, so let me adapt to what they're doing, as opposed to being like, oh, this is my way, this is how we're supposed to be. So I think the travel is just essential for you being able to understand other people's perspectives.
Hmm. Time.
But the most important thing that we have, time, and the interesting thing about it is we don't have no control over it. It's the most important thing, and we waste the
None.
time and we have no control over it.
Yeah, absolutely. Family. It's the last one.
Man, family is everything. Family is so important. I ain't gonna get too mushy, but I didn't know how much family was important to me until I wasn't around my family no more. So like I
Hmm.
done moved and I went a lot of different places and then being ambitious, and then it was like some of my cousins be like live right around the corner from other cousins or grandparents, other people, and they ain't seen them in years. And it's like, how you ain't seen somebody that live right around the corner? Meanwhile, I gotta drive hours to go see people, or things like that. And it started to make me value it. And then, so after that, it was like when I started losing people, and then it was like now I can't see them at all. I started thinking about, family, man. And then so now I got to a point in the morning after I get finished with meditation, I always say it's like four different things that I say out my mouth that I love. I love the Most High. I love Allah. I love my family. Um, I love home. I love DC. I love meditation, and I love myself. I'm okay now with being able to say I love myself. I don't know that enough people
Right.
understand that you need to be able to say love myself.
If you can't love you, how can you love anything
Anybody else?
else or anyone else? Yeah.
Absolutely. This was dope. You made me step it up a little bit. I appreciate that you came with it. This was real dope. So we'll talk more. But for now, I want to say to the people that do tune in, anybody that has more questions, anybody that wants to add anything, you can add your likes, comments, Let us know anything that you might have been thinking about, or that you would like. If somebody wants to even have more of a conversation about these things, just let us know in the comments, and we'll certainly we'll get back to you. But for now, I'll say that we also are going to be creating some T-shirts that's coming up soon. So I've been working with some people, and we're going to be doing some Black on Purpose T-shirts. So be on the lookout for
Mm-hmm.
that as well. Nicole, is there anything that else that you want to include before we conclude this episode?
Oh no, outside of yoga for kids.
Yeah, yeah, yoga
That's it.
yoga for kids. All right.
Yoga for
Do
kids.
you have a website or anything yet? You working on developing one?
Site.
Okay.
I do have a Yoga with Cole Facebook group, Yoga with Cole Facebook page,
Right.
as well as Yoga with Cole on Instagram. So
Okay. Okay.
all it's the handle is Yoga with Cole
Okay.
for all of them. Yep.
Everybody go check that out as well. This has
Thank
been
you.
another episode of Black on Purpose 365. My dog pulled up a seat, got a plate. We came here, we got full. We shared some information with people. Until next time, have a good evening. Thank you.